I was in these very shops 4 or 5 years ago as I ran for office last time. Saw Brad and other people that I saw this morning came by and said hello. Things aren't better now than they were 4 or 5 years ago. This has been a tough time for Derry. You see some shops that are boarded up, and people who are running shops have indicated that business is trailing off. And they expected things to get better in 2011. It hasn't happened. You can't blame George Bush anymore. President Obama is going to have to take responsibility for the fact that we're still in a very troubled economy. And you can't solve a crisis unless you recognize a crisis. The president's been celebrating the auto industry coming back. Recognize at the same time we see unemployment go up to 9.1%. He indicated this is just a bump on the road. It's not a bump on the road. These are Americans, and Americans are suffering. The president needs to recognize that there is a crisis in this country and devote every ounce of his energy to getting Americans back to work, to getting energy prices down so people can afford to buy the goods that these retailers are selling. So it's I think, a loud and clear message that our president is just not connected with what's happening in America, and his policies have failed us. And I'm running for president because I have spent my life in the private sector, in the real job market. I know how jobs come and go, and I will fight with all my energy, not only to know what the American people are feeling and suffering, but to solve the problems that they have and to get our economy going again, and to make sure we remain the powerful and robust economy that is expected from America and that provides for our citizens. With that, I'll turn to you with questions you may have.
Are you feeling stronger after last night's debate?
I think it was a very good debate for everyone there. We were respectful to one another, and we aimed our rhetoric towards the president where it was deserved, and so I thought everybody was actually lifted a bit by the experience last night. It was fun for me to be back and in the same venue I'd been before. I think I had a good debate 4 years ago. I thought I had a good debate last night, but I thought the others did as well.
Governor, your opponents have made it clear they think that the whole health care issue is your weakest link in all of this for you, and yet they really stayed away from it last night. Were you, for the most part, were you surprised about that?
Well, I think all of us have the same view with regards to what we should do for health care going forward. I'm the only person in the field who so far has put out a health care plan that would replace Obamacare. And it calls for returning funding to the states from Medicaid. It calls for malpractice reform. It calls for letting individuals purchase insurance on a tax advantage basis, which they now are unable to do, and a series of other proposals. But we all agree that Obamacare is the wrong direction for the nation. And if people want to look at what's happening in Massachusetts, why, I'm not running for governor of Massachusetts. I'm running for president of the United States, and my plans for the nation are like those of the other governors, just a little more specificity. And I'm looking forward, hopefully, to get the chance to debate President Obama on Obamacare. And I think I'll be pretty effective in showing why what he has crafted is bad for the nation, bad for health care, and ought to be repealed.
Do you think health care was put to rest last night, as far as you were concerned?
Oh, I don't think there are any questions that will be put to rest until somebody's won.
Governor, Afghanistan, Governor. End of the debate, you said it's time for the troops to come home, but it shouldn't be based on politics or economics. Can you expound on that a little bit, particularly the economics section you're in?
Yeah, I think we would not make a decision on withdrawal dates based upon the cash flow or based upon political favors, but instead, or political benefit, but instead based upon the capacity of the Afghan troops to preserve independence in their country. And so we will be looking for the report that comes from the generals in the field, giving us the data, and ultimately with that data, the Commander-in-Chief will have to make the decision as to what withdrawal timetable is appropriate. My own view is that there will be some who argue, oh, it's too expensive now, we've got to bring the troops home right now, or others will say, hey, politically we need to make one decision or another. You don't make a decision about our involvement in a conflict based on the dollars and cents alone, or certainly not with regards to politics. I think we also recognize that we will be looking to the Afghan people and the Afghan military and the Afghan civil leadership to step up to preserve what has been won for them. Our soldiers have cleared, for the most part, the Taliban in major parts of the nation. Holding that independence, securing an independent nation, is going to require bold and courageous leadership by the Afghan military, by their civil leadership, by the people, and that's going to have to come from them. It's not something that we can give.
Governor, what was the most important difference, if any, that you heard last night between your approach to reviving the economy and the ideas of the other Republicans?
Well, you know, I have to acknowledge that in a debate with such short answers, which results in having so many people on the stage, and that's fine, by the way, but we didn't all get a chance to talk about reviving the economy. I noted that there was an economy question, and the questions were then directed to 6 of the 7 of us on the stage. I never got the economy question, so I did not get an opportunity to lay out what I would have done to have returned the economy to full strength. I indicated that when asked about Tim Pauletti's plan, that I thought he's pulling in the right direction, or some words to that effect, and that's true. Tax policy, regulation policy, energy policy, the overreach of the federal government, all of these elements feature into getting the economy going again. But I'll note something which is something which you'll appreciate. I was once asked, who do you think would win a debate about running a business between Jack Welch and a second-year business student? And I'm not 100% sure about that, but I sure know who would be able to run a business a lot better, and that, of course, would be Jack Welch. And so a lot of people can say the same words, but to understand what those words mean and to actually craft solutions that work to create jobs, in that circumstance, it's helpful to have actually created jobs, to understand how an economy works because you've worked in it, to assign the front side of a payroll check. I say that to create jobs, it helps to have had a job. I had a job for 25 years in the private sector. That experience will help me, if I'm elected president, craft solutions that actually make a difference. So we could, for instance, we can all talk about trade that's fair and that is also open markets with fair terms. But actually knowing how to craft those agreements and knowing which elements will improve jobs and which elements hurt jobs, that's something which can only come with experience. The words are easy. The experience took a long time to get.
Governor, are you suggesting that you're Jack Welch and Tim Pawlenty is the second-year business school student?
I'm making no comparison between individuals, and I certainly didn't mention any other candidate on our side. I'm pointing out a feature which is that there are, when the president and I hopefully have the chance to talk about economic policy, I have lived in the economy. I know what the terms mean. I know when we're going to craft an agreement with Colombia or with China, what impact that will have on enterprise, because I've lived it. And there's a huge advantage, in my opinion, not to have only spoken about a topic as academics do. But actually having, or economists do, but actually having been in the world of the economy, and I make no comments about anybody on our side of the aisle, but I do make a comment about President Obama. He had no experience in the private sector, and he surrounded himself and his cabinet with virtually no one who had private sector experience, and it shows.
Thanks, Governor. How is that different than running a country? You're saying that.
There's one of the difficulties and realities is that very few people are offered the opportunity to run for president who've been president of a country before. All right. So by definition, you're taking a bit of a leap of faith, because you say this person's never run a country before. Now we're going to elect them to be the president of the United States. But what you do have is you have all their other experiences to look at, and in my case, I value the fact that I spent 25 years in the private sector, that I then helped run the Olympics, and then I helped run a state. And in each of those venues, I was able to demonstrate the kind of leadership and management skills that I think are relevant to running a nation. And but it won't be old hat to anybody who does it for the first time.